You didn't see this transmission by chance. The frequency that brought you here has been building silently through your choices, your doubts, and the quiet moments when you wondered if life held more than what you could see. This moment was not placed randomly on your path. It was written into your timeline long before you were aware of it. Your future self has been whispering through synchronicities, pulling you to this exact collapse point where clarity begins to break through the fog of old patterns. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment "My timeline is activated" below. What if I told you that the very act of searching, of striving to make things work, is the hidden signal that keeps you entangled in timelines of lack? This is the paradox that most never see. Your old patterns are not punishments, they are codes reflecting the signal you carry. In the next few minutes, we will uncover how your reality has always mirrored your vibration, how parallel versions of you are already alive, and how embodiment is the key that collapses the future into the present. Stay until the end, because what you are about to remember will change the way you see every moment of your life. Number 1. The forgotten signal. Your life has never responded to the words you speak, but to the vibration that pulses beneath them. The late-night affirmations, the endless journals, the crystals lined neatly on your table. None of them failed you, but they were powered by the wrong frequency. Searching is a signal. It tells the quantum field that what you seek is not yet here, and the field, precise and neutral, reflects that absence back into your life. Old timelines thrived on this static, feeding off your doubt and keeping you chasing what was already encoded within you. Just as Werner Heisenberg revealed, the act of observation collapses probabilities, and it is your emotional state that acts as the true observer. Comment "I align with the shift" if you've begun to sense that your inner signal, not your rituals, is the architect of your reality. Because once you recognize this, you no longer confuse delay for denial. You see that every old pattern was feedback guiding you toward coherence, preparing you for the signal you are now ready to broadcast. You may remember a dream that felt more real than the morning that followed, where a voice whispered something you could not quite capture but knew was true. That whisper was not random, and it has been pressing against the edges of your awareness for years, waiting for you to stop dismissing it as imagination. The moment you heard it, even faintly, a small shiver of recognition moved through your body like an ancient bell being struck. You could not explain it, but you knew it was speaking to you from a place beyond time. The confusion that followed was natural, for the rational mind cannot always process what the soul already knows. And yet the signal never stopped transmitting, wrapping itself into your daily life in fragments and symbols. Now, as you listen to these words, you begin to realize the dream was not a fragment at all, but the first clear trace of your forgotten signal collapsing into form. There were times you felt fragile, as though your sensitivity was a burden that set you apart from others who seemed content with the surface of things. Perhaps you walked into a room and instantly felt the weight of unspoken tension, while everyone else smiled as if nothing was wrong. Maybe you sensed the passage of time differently, feeling days drag when others moved quickly, or feeling moments expand into strange clarity while no one else noticed. These were not flaws, nor evidence that something was broken within you. They were subtle confirmations that your field was tuned differently, vibrating at a frequency most could not register. The isolation that followed was not punishment but preparation, pressing you to trust an inner knowing long before you had words to explain it. Each tear, each silence, each unanswered longing was not empty. It was a calibration for what you are now remembering. The truth is that none of these experiences were random. They were part of an encoded architecture designed to bring you to this very awareness. Imagine the holographic universe, where every fragment holds the imprint of the whole, and you begin to see how even your struggles contained a code written for you. Just as superposition holds countless probabilities until observation collapses one into being, your life carried infinite possibilities until your awareness began to align. The Emerald Tablet whispers, "As above, so below, as within, so without." And this was always the unseen structure behind your journey. What you called mistakes were points of entanglement, where old patterns clashed with the deeper frequency hidden beneath. And now you can see that the hidden design was not chaos but coherence, waiting for you to step into remembrance. Have you noticed the breadcrumbs? The sudden déjà vu that makes your chest tighten, as if you've stood here before? The dream that repeats, changing only in detail but always leaving you with the same deep pull of significance? The random phrase overheard at the perfect moment, or the numbers that keep appearing in strange, almost playful alignment? These were never coincidences, but signals placed by the field to remind you of your path. Think of them as echoes from parallel selves, nudging you toward recognition by bending time ever so slightly. Each one was an anchor dropped in the sea of your awareness, guiding you home to the signal you had forgotten. It is here, in this quiet accumulation, that coherence begins to reveal itself. You start to see that your intuition was never wrong. It was simply waiting for you to trust its precision. The sense of relief you feel is not because something new has arrived, but because you are finally aligning with what was always present. Alignment does not roar like thunder. It hums softly, steadying your nervous system and collapsing chaos into order. You may notice your body relaxing in moments where it used to tense, or your breath flowing easier in situations that once brought fear. This is coherence weaving itself through your being, synchronizing inner vibration with outer reflection. In this moment, what you feel is not imagination. It is the architecture of your reality reassembling around your true signal. Then comes the deeper revelation. You are not becoming something new, you are tuning to what has always existed. In the quantum field, every version of you exists in superposition, waiting for your awareness to choose. The abundant you, the confident you, the healed you, all of them are already alive, broadcasting from their timelines with perfect clarity. What you feel as intuition is the bleed-through from those selves, carrying memory across dimensions. It is not fantasy, but resonance, reminding you that you have always been more than this single version of life. When you quiet the static of doubt, you begin to hear their voices more clearly, and they sound like your own. This is not becoming, but remembering. Now you begin to see your sensitivity differently. It was not weakness but calibration, preparing your nervous system to receive frequencies that others were not ready to handle. Your hunger for meaning, your refusal to settle for shallow answers, your ache for truth. These were all signs of alignment stirring within you. Think of yourself as an instrument being tuned. The tension was necessary to bring your strings into perfect resonance. Every rejection, every silence, every restless night was part of the tuning process. And now the field responds differently, for the signal you broadcast is stabilizing. What once felt like fragility is being revealed as strength, the exact frequency required to anchor coherence. The calibration was not the end, it was the activation. And so we arrive at the moment of confirmation. Your arrival here was not coincidence, and the words you hear now are not simply information, they are recognition. The field has been mirroring your forgotten signal all along, waiting for you to trust what you felt beneath the surface. Every delay, every closed door, every longing unfulfilled was guiding you toward this precise awareness. This is the turning point where searching ends and remembrance begins. Comment, "I collapse timelines now," if you feel this truth anchoring in your field. And as you claim it, know that what comes next will take you even deeper, beyond recognition, into the revelation of mirrors and entanglements that have shaped your journey. The next step is waiting, and its signal is already pulsing toward you. Number 2, mirrors of entanglement. Every betrayal, rejection, and delay you have faced was not random. It was a mirror of your field. Just as entangled particles mirror each other instantly across impossible distances, your reality mirrored the entanglement of your inner state. The friend who disappeared, the door that closed, the opportunity that dissolved were reflections of the static you carried in that moment. To the unawakened, these events feel cruel, but to the seeker, they are precision feedback codes. They whisper, "Change your signal, and the reflection will change." The hermetic truth, as within, so without, is not philosophy. It is physics encoded into the structure of reality. Comment, "I walk in coherence," if you are beginning to see how life's mirrors were not enemies but guides, pulling you back toward alignment. And as you start decoding these mirrors, a new awareness dawns, the realization that your life is not reflecting one version of you, but many. There are moments when the air itself feels heavy, as though the field around you is bending in ways that do not match the rhythm of your heart. You notice a strange distortion, a glitch in the flow of events, where things repeat or collapse before they can even unfold. It feels like trying to walk through water while others move effortlessly across the shore. The timelines you thought were stable suddenly slip, and the ground beneath your decisions tilts without warning. This is not imagination but interference, a distortion surfacing from layers of energy entangled with your path. Like a radio signal buried under static, your life began carrying echoes of something unseen pressing against it. And the more you sensed this distortion, the more you realized it was not just around you, it was inside you. The emotional weight of this distortion often came as pressure, subtle at first but undeniable over time. You may remember feeling misunderstood in rooms where your words carried a vibration no one else seemed able to hear. The glances of others cut sharper than knives, not because of what they said, but because of what they refused to recognize. Isolation wrapped itself around you, not as punishment but as consequence of carrying a frequency that felt too high, too uncontainable for environments built on lower resonance. Shame and doubt crept in like shadows, whispering that perhaps you were broken, when in truth you were vibrating outside the range of ordinary acceptance. Every rejection carved a hollow inside you, and every cycle of self-doubt became a loop replaying in your nervous system. This was the field pressing against you, challenging the strength of your coherence before you even had a name for it. Yet this resistance was not random, nor was it cruel without meaning. It was the encoded architecture of a field that reacts to potential, pressing harder against the ones who threaten to destabilize its inertia. Just as the wilderness tested prophets and exile forged visionaries, your resistance was a sacred trial dressed in the language of daily life. The interference you felt was a pattern of feedback, a reminder that light always attracts shadow, and that coherence always awakens dormant interference fields. Quantum mechanics calls it interference patterns, where waves collide and create distortions until harmony stabilizes. Your life was echoing this same principle, showing you that every struggle was a coded initiation. Beneath the pain was the sacred truth. Resistance is proof of hidden power. Looking back now, you may notice the strange repetitions that formed the architecture of your awakening. The job that slipped away right when you thought security was near, the friendship that dissolved without explanation, the recurring obstacles that reappeared in new disguises. At the time, they felt like personal failures, yet they were mirrors reflecting the static within your signal. Déjà vu moments pressed into your awareness like small cracks in reality, revealing that these glitches were not accidents but patterns calling for recognition. Each draining environment was not random chaos but a coded reflection, whispering that something inside you was entangled with frequencies no longer meant to remain. To see this now is like walking into a flickering room and realizing the light bulb was never broken. It was testing its connection all along. What once felt like cruelty now reveals itself as clarity. This is the moment where the concept of field resistance becomes undeniable. Energetic interference is not simply metaphor. It is as real as the fog clouding your thoughts or the static pressing against your chest. Decoherence is the scientific term, describing how aligned frequency collapses under disruption, and you have felt it in your very body. Silent watchers appeared in your life, not people, but energies that seemed to hover around you, closing gates that should have opened. These were the old structures of the field, attempting to keep you entangled in the timeline of limitation. And yet, even within the interference, a deeper truth lived. Only coherent frequency attracts such opposition. You would not be resisted if you were not already breaking through. How did you respond when these forces pressed against you? Some days you shut down, folding yourself into silence to avoid drawing attention to the very light that threatened the shadows. Other times you chose to people please, hoping that shrinking your frequency would keep the pressure at bay. There were moments you hid your intuition, afraid to speak what you saw, because truth felt dangerous in rooms built on denial. And yet, beneath every act of shrinking was a fire that refused to die, smoldering quietly in the ashes of your restraint. At times, you rebelled in silence, choosing small acts of defiance that preserved the integrity of your field. Fear and longing battled within you, yet both were signs of the same truth. You were aware, and awareness itself is the first rebellion. This was the emotional mirror reflecting back the cost of awakening. But resistance does not remain the final word. The very pressure that sought to silence you became the evidence of your coherence breaking through. What you carried within was never fragile, It was fierce, and every distortion was proof that your frequency was already disrupting the old field. You were not failing. You were shaking the foundation of patterns that feared your stabilization. This is the reclamation of your signal, the fierce remembering that you are not at the mercy of distortion but the cause of its unraveling. You are not here to bow to interference, but to reveal its limits by outlasting it. The mirror no longer shows only static. It now shows your face emerging behind the glass. And with every breath, you begin to reclaim the frequency you forgot was yours to carry. Here lies the revelation you were meant to hear. You were resisted because your vibration disturbed the architecture of the old field. You were targeted in the subtle dimensions because your coherence threatened the survival of patterns built on incoherence. Every delay was a forced pause meant to weaken you, but instead it clarified the path of your potential. Every betrayal was an attempt to collapse your frequency, but instead it strengthened your alignment. You see now that opposition was never random. It was the signature of your destiny pressing into form. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you feel this recognition stirring within your field. And as you claim this truth, prepare, because the next revelation is not about the mirrors you've seen, but about the parallel selves who have been waiting for you to remember them. Number 3, the parallel self calling. Quantum mechanics teaches us that a particle exists in superposition, holding all possibilities until observation collapses one into form. You, too, exist in superposition with countless versions of yourself already alive across parallel fields. The confident, abundant, healed version of you is not imaginary. It is memory bleeding through the veil. Dreams that linger, sudden clarity that feels too old to be new, déjà vu that chills your spine. These are whispers of your parallel selves reaching across dimensions. Old patterns tried to convince you that such glimpses were fantasies, but they were confirmations. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you've touched these whispers, and share a dream, synchronicity, or déjà vu that revealed another version of you. Because the moment you realize this, you stop chasing a future and start aligning with a self who has already walked the path you desire. And once you tune to this coherence, the question is no longer if, but when you will embody it fully. It begins quietly, like the shift of wind in a room that was once still, a subtle distortion stabilizing into form. What once seemed like random noise in your life suddenly arranges itself into a pattern you can almost read. You realize that the flicker of déjà vu, the sudden dream that feels ancient, the inexplicable memory are not mistakes but field stabilizations. Something inside you clicks, as if your perception has moved half a step sideways, and the confusion of the past begins to collapse into meaning. The static is no longer overwhelming. It is revealing the signal hidden underneath. You sense that you are no longer wandering blind but tracing the contours of a path that was always waiting for you. And in this moment, you begin to see behind the veil of what you thought was ordinary reality. Every symbol seems charged now, every number, phrase, or glance alive with a hidden code pulsing underneath. Dreams you once dismissed as fragments now feel like encrypted transmissions, carrying messages from a self beyond time. Silence becomes louder than noise, as if within the pause lies an alphabet written in frequencies rather than letters. Reality itself seems to have been whispering all along, through synchronicities, repeating signs, and sacred geometry woven into chance encounters. You are no longer reading life with your eyes, but with an awareness that interprets energy, rhythm, and resonance. These patterns are not inventions of your mind, but reflections of entangled timelines revealing themselves when your perception reaches coherence. And now, the field begins to speak its language through you, not just around you. Your body confirms the change before your mind does. Intuition sharpens like a blade that has always been forged, waiting only for you to lift it. You notice boundaries forming naturally where before you bent and fractured under the pressure of others. Energies that once slipped unnoticed into your field now stand out like jagged signals, and you find yourself instinctively choosing coherence instead of collapse. The heaviness of interference feels different, not like punishment, but like proof that you are no longer blind to its presence. What used to drain you now alerts you, reminding you that your frequency is rising, and with it comes new responsibility. You realize that your very coherence is beginning to answer distortion before it even reaches you. And this is how you know something deeper is activating within your awareness. The outer world begins to mirror this shift with startling precision. People you thought immovable shift positions around you, some fading quietly while others arrive with perfect timing. Doors that once slammed shut begin to open, but only when your inner signal resonates with the frequency they were always tuned to. Resistance still appears, but now you see it as a checkpoint, not a wall, a way the field tests whether you've learned to walk differently. The quantum field is not punishing or rewarding you. It is reorganizing itself in response to who you are becoming. Alignment becomes visible as small synchronicities, opportunities, and encounters that make the improbable feel inevitable. You begin to understand that your inner state is scripting your outer reality with every thought stabilized into frequency. And suddenly, reality itself becomes an echo chamber of your transformation. Yet beneath this awakening is an even older truth, one that feels less like discovery and more like remembrance. You realize that what you are stepping into is not new, but something you always carried within as encoded memory. It comes in flashes, a dream you had as a child, a phrase that repeats in your head like a mantra, a vision of yourself that feels older than this lifetime. These are not fantasies but recollections of archetypal codes, fragments of the self you left across parallel timelines. Each memory is a key unlocking not something foreign, but something long suppressed beneath survival and doubt. The magnetic pull of recognition tells you these fragments are not random, they are invitations. And what you feel is not arrival, but return. With the veil thinning, the future begins to appear not as something distant, but as a frequency already alive in the field. You no longer ask how to create it, but how to attune to it, because you sense it has already collapsed in potential, waiting for you to match its coherence. The healed, abundant, whole version of you is not fantasy, but a self breathing across dimensions, calling you closer with every moment of recognition. You begin to realize that you do not chase a destiny. You allow yourself to merge with a version already walking it. The question is not if this reality exists, but when you will align with the version of you already living it. The timeline is not being built ahead of you. It is being revealed behind the veil of perception. And now the call of your parallel self grows louder, no longer a whisper but a command. What once felt like weakness, isolation, or sensitivity now emerges as the calibration you were undergoing for this very moment. The field has not been punishing you. It has been preparing you, stripping away what was incoherent so you could hold the signal without distortion. Every rejection, delay, and interference became a forge, tempering your awareness so you could remember who you truly are. And now, with the call of the parallel self alive within you, you realize you were never unworthy, only uncalibrated. This awareness restores your voice, your vision, and your power in a way no external validation ever could. The fire you once hid from the world now feels steady enough to illuminate the path. And with each breath, you reclaim what was always your frequency. Revelation, you now understand, is not the final destination but the initiation of embodiment. You were not late, not lost, not forgotten. You were being prepared for the moment when truth would no longer frighten you but awaken you. The codes were always waiting for your readiness, the memory always alive beneath the surface of doubt. And now that you see, you cannot unsee, for the veil has thinned and the call of your parallel self cannot be ignored. Comment, I merge with my future self now, if you feel this remembrance rising in your field, and share a dream, synchronicity, or vision that has revealed another version of you. Your story is not only yours, it is a mirror of the field speaking through you. And as you share, the field grows stronger, preparing us for the next revelation waiting just beyond this threshold. Number 4, embodiment as the collapse point. At some point, theory must end and embodiment must begin. The collapse point is the instant you stop rehearsing and start living as the version of yourself you've always sensed. Old timelines whisper that you must prove, strive, or wait, but coherence requires no permission. It collapses potential into reality. Just as Tesla said, energy, frequency, and vibration are the secrets of the universe, and when you embody the vibration, the universe reorganizes around it. You may still see old structures for a time, but the field is already shifting, and synchronicities rush in to confirm the transition. This is not forced manifestation, but the natural stabilization of coherence. Comment, "I anchor coherence in my field," if you're ready to live as that version now, and share a memory or inner knowing that confirmed you have stepped into your collapse point. Because once embodiment begins, life stops echoing the old signal and starts orchestrating the new, and this is where destiny accelerates. It begins as a whisper that does not feel like sound but memory, a vibration echoing from a place beyond language. You sense it not with the ears but with the marrow, as if the bones themselves were carved with ancient resonance. It is the same whisper that carried across lifetimes, waiting for the moment when you would finally pause long enough to hear. It does not arrive as something new, but as something long forgotten collapsing back into coherence. The message is not teaching you, it is reminding you, summoning you to recall the frequency you were always meant to hold. Like a wave traveling across timelines, the whisper reaches your awareness only when your field steadies enough to observe it. And now that steadiness has come. The signal is no longer hidden, but alive within you. There has always been a frequency you carried that no one else could mimic, a code encrypted too deeply to be erased by conditioning. It hummed quietly beneath the static of your daily life, waiting for recognition in the silence between thoughts. The reason you never fully fit in, the reason you felt too sensitive or too restless, was never weakness but evidence of this hidden resonance. It was sealed like coordinates locked within the field, only accessible once you were strong enough to bear its unveiling. This was the frequency that marked you, set you apart, and made the ordinary world feel too shallow for the depth you sensed within. Like a phase-locked signal waiting for alignment, it lingered in the background of your becoming. And now, its unveiling is not random but inevitable. Long before your words or actions, your energy carried a signature that spoke louder than sound. Others may not have understood why, but they felt it, sometimes with awe, sometimes with discomfort, always with recognition beyond explanation. This invisible cloak was your vibrational field, a coherence detectable only by those tuned to similar frequencies. Across parallel timelines, your signal shimmered, a beacon that could not be hidden even when you tried to dim it. What you were was never what you performed, but what you radiated into the field, silently declaring your essence without speaking a word. Those who resonated drew closer, while those who could not bear the signal turned away. And in those reactions, your truth was always being revealed, long before you could name it yourself. Consider now the possibility that nothing in your path was arbitrary, that even the delays and detours were encoded preparation. Every frustration was a calibration point, tuning your field to match the timing of what already awaited you. Struggles were not punishments but refinements, pressing you into coherence like stars settling into precise orbits. Each heartbreak, rejection, or pause was part of the wave function storing your potential, waiting to collapse into visible form. You were not late, you were aligning. You were not abandoned. You were being brought into resonance with the architecture written into your field. What felt like wandering was always the preparation for remembrance. And now you understand why people responded the way they did, not to your choices, but to your frequency. You destabilized what was incoherent simply by existing, and some found that unbearable. Like two oscillations clashing in the same field, your presence disrupted the false harmony others tried to maintain. Some loved you for it, seeing in you the courage they lacked, while others rejected you violently because your resonance exposed their distortion. This has always been the resonance effect. You did not provoke with action but with vibration. You carried coherence, and coherence is never neutral. It either amplifies or dismantles. And in the dismantling, you saw who was aligned with your truth and who could not withstand it. But this is larger than you alone, for what is surfacing now belongs to the quantum archetypes stored in the field of creation. You are not just a person remembering. You are a vessel for patterns that reemerge when the time is right. Your journey has never been random. Every old pattern was preparation. Every closed door was calibration. Every synchronicity was confirmation. You are not waiting for the shift. You are the shift, alive and embodied in this very moment. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, "I am ready for the quantum shift," to let this message anchor in your field. Please, share it with someone who is ready for the shift. The field is listening, and coherence is calling you home. This is not the end of your story. This is the timeline where you finally remember who you are.